Good evening, everybody. I'm Gordon Lugauer. We're going to talk about an idea I've had for a long time. This is about guns. This is specifically about death from guns, not about ownership of guns. This idea has three components. The first is placing a societal value on the loss of life and assigning liability for that value. Two, allowing that to be insured against, and three, allowing that liability to transfer and absolve the prior person. All right, let's get started. Detour for a second. Why am I not going to talk about gun ownership? Second Amendment. Second Amendment is the law of the land, and pretty much says that there's not much that we can do in the way of regulating the existence or ownership of guns. And frankly, who cares, right? The fact that there are guns all over the place, that's a problem, and I could say a lot about that, but specifically in terms of the cost that we as society pay, in terms of all the extra policing and the arming of our policing, both in terms of dollars and then attendant loss of life and marginalization and so on. Like, we pay a huge cost for the Second Amendment, and it's for the benefit that to keep the government in check, right? So that a government can't just start terrorizing its citizens or snatching them off the street or infringing on their right to free speech or some such. So we also know that the benefit of that is a lie, because we have the government snatching people off the street. We have the government squelching free protest under the Second Amendment. And indeed, we have people with guns ostensibly there to protect the Second Amendment, shooting protesters, exercising their First Amendment. So we know that we pay this huge cost for the Second Amendment and that we actually get no benefit from it, even worse than the way in which we treat our health care. But the Second Amendment remains the law of the land. This is not that. This is strictly to look at the loss to society when someone is killed by a gun. So let's talk about loss to society. Society is represented by the government. That's us. That's, we the people are the government. So when we talk about a loss to society, government is the way in which we account for that loss. And when someone is no longer a contributing member of society, we lose their tax revenue. Okay, right? I pay taxes. You probably pay taxes. If I were to suddenly die, I'm no longer going to be paying taxes. So at a bare minimum, we know that the value to society of someone who died before society was expecting them to is their lost tax revenue. So there's a way we could kind of estimate what that was and assign a number to that. Again, that is probably should not be the only way in which we are valuing life. Putting a dollar value on life. We know it's not zero. We know it's not infinity. There needs to be a dollar value there. And there probably are different ways that you want to value that in different situations, but this is the basic metric that I'm going to come into this here. And then I'm going to reduce that even further. I'm just going to say that the number is $1 million. Again, smarter people than I who understand that concept should come to better conclusions. But we're going to say that society has an interest in the tax revenue of each of us, and that amount is $1 million. So the first part of this is to identify that and quantify it, put a number on it, and say, if someone is killed as a result of a gun, the owner of that gun is liable to society for the loss of that tax revenue, or in this case, $1 million. Two, now that we have established there could be that liability, let's now allow there to be insurance for it. So that's the second part to this. So anybody who thinks that they might be exposed to that liability, perhaps because they own a gun, but perhaps not, right, whatever, can buy insurance for that. And if they have insurance, then we will look to the society will look to the insurance company to pay that $1 million, not the individual. And then the third part to that is that if you transfer ownership of that firearm to another person, and that other person has a proper insurance, again, so we would, from a company that has registered as offering firearms insurance, firearm death insurance, then that the original owner is absolved. They're off. They're off the hook. They sold that gun to someone who is now carrying a policy. This doesn't say what the policies are going to require, right? It's merely saying there's a dollar value to human life. We're going to call it $1 million. An insurance company who registers under this plan to offer policies. They just need to tell us what they're doing, or that they're choosing to offer that policy. And then the third part is that if you transfer from person to person, so long as they're transferring to an insurance company, then that first person is off the hook. So let's think about what this might look like in practice. A gun manufacturer, Smith & Wesson, or I don't know who they are, they make a gun. They're the owner of that gun. They have a policy with an insurance company in the event that someone stole their gun from their warehouse and shot someone up with it. Okay. They sell that gun to a distributor, so they are going to make certain that they don't have to, if they choose to have that distributor register that purchase with the distributor's insurance company, then Smith & Wesson off the hook forever. They're done. Similarly, if the distributor sells it to a retailer, and that retailer has shown that they have a policy, again, distributor off the hook, and then that retailer wants to sell it to me, that retailer might only sell it to me if I show to the retailer that I have a proper insurance policy. In the same way that if I want to buy a car, I probably have to show that I have insurance for the car. Certainly if I want to rent a car, I have to do that. But if I want to buy that, now the retailer doesn't have to do that. The retailer could just sell it to me and they remain the liable party of record. That's fine, their choice. Again, up to them, right? Up to them and their insurance company perhaps, but there's nothing about the regulation that is preventing them from doing that. Similarly, once I own the gun, there's nothing preventing me from selling it to someone else down the street or giving it to them or whatever it might be, but I remain the liable party of record, right? So maybe I want to make certain that I'm selling it to someone else who has a valid insurance policy, but that's up to me. Personal choice. I can do what I want to do. Then in the event that someone is killed by a gun, we simply look to see who is the liability owner of record, and that person or their insurance policy kicks $1 million back. All right. So the idea behind this is not that we, the people in the form of the federal government, is collecting a bunch of $1 million payouts. That's not the goal. The goal of this is that now we have this chain of internal checks where we're letting the norms and mores of the people who are making and selling and whatever it is, dealing with these guns, that they're checking on themselves, right? There's no big brother involved looking down saying, aha, you have to comply with these rules. No, manage it yourself. All we are doing is we are putting a dollar value on what happens if you get it wrong. Because right now we don't do that. We just bear the cost. So let's put a value on what happens when the worst thing happens. Let's put a number on that. That number is a dollar value. And now let's say, okay, so if the worst happens, we have that dollar value and we're going to look, again, no criminal element to this, this isn't superseding what the families might do in terms of behaviors. We're just looking at the fact that someone died from a gun. And that creates a loss to society. And we're going to put a value on that loss to society. And now we are going to say, hey, this is somewhere along the way, you were the one involved. And then we'll let everybody else in that circle figure out what the proper sets of norms and mores, whether that's background checks or gun safes or whatever it might be. They can figure it out, right? That's what this is doing. So it's a free market solution. It's a non-regulatory solution. It is putting a value on something that currently we are just bearing the cost without putting a number on it. Let's put a number on it, find a mechanism for redress, and then allow that to be insured against, and then let the people who know best do their stuff. All right. That's the idea. All right. 3 parts. Okay. And I say it again. So dollar value, I'm going to call it $1 million. Better people should come up with some smarts on that. The reason that we think that can exist in the first place is because society has an interest in the tax revenues that all of us generate back to society. You can have another philosophy for it, but that to me, at its most basic core, that is the justification, not some woolly, we all care about people. We probably do. But even if you say that you don't care about those people, or you don't care about those people, or those people matter more, that's hard to quantify. We're going to quantify it through tax revenue. So at least you've got that. 2, just a no-nonsense way to assign the liability for that, it's owner of the gun, and allow that to be insured against. And then let people get out from under it, right? There's a way you can transfer that liability, and all you have to do is transfer it back to someone, again, who exists in this insurance market. That's the way that it works. For all the guns that are currently in existence, we would have to say, well, we are doing our level best to figure out who the owner of that gun is and let everybody go to town and get their insurance policies right now. But in the absence of that, since we don't have that chain all the way down from manufacturer, we're just going to have to say, well, if we determine that you were the owner of that gun, then you're liable. There's probably some other goofy corner case stuff that needs to be thought of in there, and perhaps they can get a little overly woolly. I would want that to be as simple and straightforward as possible. If you're the owner of the gun, you're on the hook for the $1 million if someone dies from a gun that you owned, again, regardless of who pulled the trigger. And you can still insure against that. We're not requiring you to, though. That's totally opt-in, right? This is no government dictation here. And again, the Second Amendment is the law of the land, right? We're not trying to lay down some sort of governmental restriction on gun ownership. You can own all the guns that you want under the system. We're just hoping that no one dies from them. That's really the goal. So thank you very much for sitting through all this. I guess I'm probably, I cleared the 10-minute mark. I'm sorry. Well, we'll try and keep it short next time. Thank you very much. Again, I'm Gordon, and I'm going to rename this channel for reasons. So thank you.